And we're live.
Alrighty.
Senate candidate Andy Hopper. What is up,
Chandler
man? It's so cool. It's weird seeing a friend and thinking, man, you're running for Senate. That's pretty mind blowing.
I am. I know. It's the weirdest thing I've ever done, but it's been so much fun. I'll tell you what.
You know how I found out that you were running for Senate?
How's that?
So here's the backstory. Amanda, your wife, is on staff here. She's one of our employees. And so every day I get a daily report from every employee.
Right.
And so on her daily report, it said something like, help Andy run for Senate. And I'm like, what's going on? This is great. It's awesome. Well, so let me give you a proper introduction here. So I have known Andy for a long time. We met at church many years ago. How many years ago do you think that was?
Oh gosh, it's got to be like 2004 or 5, don't you reckon? So probably 15 years.
That's crazy. Well, and I remember seeing your little kids run around at your house and thinking, man, I don't know how they do it. Those kids have too much energy. I wouldn't be able to hang. And whatever. You just seem like you have your act together, and whatever. It's like we hit it off, and we've been friends ever since. And then fast forward, and I mean we've kept in touch over the years, and then fast forward to recently, as in I guess the past 2 years or so. I needed to hire somebody else to help with property tax stuff and to help do what we're doing here with my company. And so I put the word out, and Amanda applied for the job.
Yeah. And right through the front door, right?
What?
You went right through the front door, right?
That's right.
Like everybody else, yeah.
She applied just like everybody else. And the thing is I don't care if I'm friends with you. If you are not the best person for the job, you're not getting the job. That's just the way I do it, right?
Exactly.
And so Amanda applied with 200 other people, and she was awesome. And I promise you, I had to make her think that it was like a close race, a close deal. Like maybe there's a handful of candidates that I was considering, which I was, but truthfully, nobody even came close to Amanda. So if you deserve to get elected to Senate for any reason other than your ability to choose an amazing wife and get her to somehow marry you, then that's
I know. I was so lucky. It was just man, I tell you what, even seeing her during this whole campaign, I mean, her ability to multitask is unparalleled. I mean, I don't even know. I mean, I get stuck on one thing and I got to finish that one thing, and you get to do that in engineering, but doing what she's doing, she's like, okay, I'm doing this. Oh, I'm folding clothes while I'm doing it. And I'm, spinning something on my head. I mean, she's unreal. So yeah.
I've seen it too. Y'all are going camping. You're taking kids to college. I'm sure going through some kind of gut wrenching emotional process, and
he would actually leave, but he went to tech for 1 month, and then COVID happened, and he's back. I mean, he's been here the whole time. He's going to tech now, and he's living upstairs. It's the craziest thing I've ever seen.
How about that? Well, I could have fun talking with you all day about all this stuff, and I'm looking forward to a lot more conversations. But here's the thing. You guys, your family has been completely on board supporting everything we have been doing to help people with property tax stuff. Your wife has been working on a daily basis for a good long while helping with it. And I mean, we came over to your house asking for advice and getting guidance on just navigating life through all this stuff. And you guys have been very helpful, and you've already been a supporter. And so now come to today, you're running for Senate. You're a software engineer. I didn't even know Texas had a military until I found out that you're serving in Texas's military.
Most people don't know. There's actually, I think, maybe 15 to 17 states that have active state defense forces. But Texas, I mean, that's a long and very illustrious history in Texas to have a force that answers just to the governor. And so I'm talking about it. They're being in the State Guard. The folks in the Texas State Guard are the finest Texans I have ever met in my entire life. Finest Americans, of course, but let's just go with Texan because that's where we are. So, yeah, it's one of the greatest things I've ever been a part of, and I'm just proud to be a member. So it's been good for me.
That's awesome. Well, you've got my family thinking about it. So you've convinced us to homeschool, and now everybody's homeschooling. It's the cool thing, and now
it's the thing now.
Yeah. Anyway, all right. So Andy, let's lay it out. Let's get right to it, man. So you're on board with the property tax stuff. Tell us why why are you interested in helping people with property taxes, and what is your solution to help solve the whole property tax dilemma that people are having
right.
on permanently?
I tell you what, Chandler, I mean, I've talked to so many people over the last couple of weeks. I mean, it is unreal. I've been on the phone 100% of the time and talking to folks in different parts of District 30. And the thing that comes up on top of everything is this overwhelming fear. Oh my gosh, I'm going to get taxed off my property, get taxed out of my house, get taxed out of my ranch. How do I, what's going to be done? This seems to just keep going up year after year after year. And, we were told that there was reform last session, and there was some reform. I mean, we capped the growth of or the increase of schools to 2.5%. And, under some conditions, some cities of different sizes, cities are capped at 3.5% revenue increase. So there are changes, but people think that there was really a change to how much extra you could be charged as a personal homeowner from year to year. And it's really still 10%, right, Chandler?
Yep. It can go up 10% every year. Yep.
Right. So, I mean, one of the things that I think that we need to do is we need to stem that increase. We need to try to figure out ways to help homeowners and to be able to set up shop here in Texas and to thrive, in this place. We do not want to turn this into California. We don't want to turn into this thing where only a certain class of people, only people that, maybe after saving an entire lifetime can get a home. I mean, when you talk to folks out west, that's a story you often hear, even in my field in engineering. You see folks that, man, I can't believe you have a home. I mean, I've been saving for 20 years to be able to just, make that work or try to figure out how to get a little tiny place. And it's not fair. We should not do that here. So we need to come up with ways to stop it.
Yep. Amen. Well, I can tell you what, Andy, it's like I can't attribute it to anything else but God's grace as to why me and you are sitting here right now on this thing. I mean, who would have thought years ago that we'd be doing this? Here's the thing, Andy, you don't know. I mean, literally 5 minutes before we went on air, I just talked to a guy who he thinks his house was probably valued at $423,000, but yet the appraisal district wants it at $500,000. And there's somebody else that we talked to who's she's going to go out and have to get a job because she's going to have to pay for taxes. And I hear these stories day after day after day of people in hardship because they're because their property tax issues. And what we're doing protesting is a temporary fix. Next year, they're going to value it temporary. It's going to go up 10% higher, almost guaranteed. And I promise you, if you're in Tarrant County, it's for sure going to go up 10%. I mean, not for sure, but the vast majority are. But this is madness, Andy. It really sucks because this is just a Band-Aid. What you have the power to do is to solve this problem permanently. And so it's like, it's just awesome that you're going to hopefully, get elected and solve the problem by at least being another voice and advocate for property owners down there.
That's exactly right. Yeah. I mean, just get into some of the things that I'm proposing here. We're basically looking at two fixes for property tax. And like I say, I'd like to talk a little bit about my feelings about property tax because, and we'll get into that a little bit because I think that I haven't, it runs against the grain, just the entire idea of a property tax, but there's things that we can do to help. And so the two things that we're looking at, and I think that could make a difference and I think we could get support for is just, first of all, taking that idea that 10% per year, this is too much, guys. I mean, it's too much. And if it happens every year, like you say, it just dominoes. It kind of builds and builds. And eventually you're talking about real money, right? Just after a few years, especially if you don't protest. I mean, how many times, I paid the IRS, I paid the state of Texas. It seemed like just yesterday, and I'm going to have to pay them. I mean, these years are flying by and it just builds up to a huge sum of money real quick. So I think the first thing we can do, and we can agree on, is getting that 10% and basically say, no, 5%. 5% is a reasonable increase. All right. So we're going to limit to that and we're going to start there. And I think people can agree. I mean, even a 5% increase, I mean, that's greater than the budget increases of the cities or of the schools that are permitted. I think that's a reasonable figure. So that's number one. All right. Number two is that we would like to, first of all, let's talk a little background. And you actually educated me over the years on some of this, is that we've got commercial real estate, we got residential real estate. Commercial real estate is kind of a closed book system oftentimes. I mean, people think that this Central Appraisal District, the CAD, actually has a right to know how much things sell for. But in fact, they don't have a right to know. And the only reason they do know for residential property is because of MLS. they can basically subscribe to MLS and get the same numbers realtors do. So, when you go and protest as a commercial owner, you can really pull a lot of tactics that residential owners don't have the right to do, because you can say, hey, listen, that's not a valid comparative market value that you're comparing me to, because, that's not even close to the same price. Well, okay, well, maybe it's not. And then they basically get to make a valid protest. But for residential buyers, they're disadvantaged. What I'm saying is they're inherently disadvantaged because all of the information is out there. And I think that equalizing, kind of leveling the playing field between the commercial and the residential is really the goal in what I'm about to say. I think that we actually need to have an across the board exemption. We have homestead exemption now, and that's something you have to apply for. And, what we need is something that is just automatic, and I think that would be a good improvement, is to basically just have an across the board exemption for residential single family dwellings, because I think that that playing field between commercial and residential has gotten so so lopsided. I think we just need to do something to kind of stem that issue. So I think that's another good thing that we can propose that will get support, and I think people can get behind it.
Absolutely. You know what, Andy? That's a terrific solution, especially for for people that are depending on rental income for their retirement. If there's not a cap on how much the property taxes can increase, then it forces them to have to go get a job in the middle of their retirement. So, man, I absolutely agree with you. I think that that's a terrific solution, and I'm pumped. If listen, what you're saying makes a whole lot of sense. If you have a cap at 5% per year, that's more than most people are getting in a pay raise every year. Why, if you can't calculate taxes based on a 5% increase per year, then something tells me that there's a problem somewhere else, and maybe it has to do with how much money they're spending. Maybe they can't. Maybe they need to exercise some self-control in where they're spending money and figure out another way to do it.
You're right, and that's the thing that I've always observed, and even in working in defense and whatnot, is the fact that any aspect of government, it doesn't matter if you're talking about city government, national government, state government, government grows, and there's not always a positive pressure that that you would get in pure market laissez-faire sort of market pressure on government to basically kind of keep it down. You and I have to balance our checkbook. We have a certain amount of money coming in, a certain amount of going out. We got to make decisions, and we can't really change how much money's coming in all the time. And so, government, on the other hand, all they have to do is ask for more money. It's very easy. It's very easy. It's not a lot of pressure there. It's too easy to have a bond election. It's too easy to just kind of vote an increase. And so we've got to, as citizens, come together and put limits on government, because we all believe in small government, right?
Mm-hmm. In Texas, that's the consensus. All right. So here's something else. I want to get to some more of your policy stuff, because I think it's really interesting. So pretty close to 100% of all my clients ever have said, man, I just would like to get a little piece of land and maybe move out in the country a little bit more and I have a place where I can get a little bit of elbow room. Now, the people that are actually in the country, they've got a completely different concern. They see the development happening and they're thinking, man, now I've realized this dream. I've got a piece of land, and they've got a completely different set of concerns. And you've got a solution to help make sure that dream of owning the land and having a nice home in the country, that we can still have that dream and actually achieve it at some point, rather than having to compete against, I don't know, forces squeezing us out of that. So tell me, what's the solution that you have for people that are trying to, realize that dream, or people that already have a home out in the country and have a little bit of land? And what do you see the problem?
Right. And if you hear this, we're here in Decatur, it is coming down. I'm telling you, like, dogs and cats are flying out of the sky right now. So if you hear something funny, it is the weather outside. But no, you're exactly right. So the two things that I hear the most frequently talking to everybody out here in SD30 is the fact that, a lot of SD30, is kind of bordering the edge of the Metroplex. You've got Gainesville, you've got Decatur, heck, even Jacksboro. You've got folks that are now within spitting distance. A lot of people are willing to drive an hour each way to work. So that's kind of the radius that you're getting. And a lot of the population, SD30, is in that some sort of semi, rural or completely rural environment. We sure are here in Decatur. We're not. I say we live in Decatur. We actually live in Wise County, north of Decatur, right? I mean, that's just the closest town we can drive to, and that's the life we wanted to live. We like the idea of having our neighbors almost too far away to speak. Nothing wrong if you don't like that, but that's the way we've liked to raise our kids and grow up. And what I'm finding is a ton of people are moving out because they want that too. Things are changing, Chandler. The internet's getting better. I mean, folks are able to get internet anywhere.
And the cities are getting worse.
Right.
If you want to get away from a riot, you got to have a place to move to. So, yeah.
That's what I'm reading, right? And so there's a lot of folks that are thinking about this. And so one of the things that, potential people that are going to move out, and like you said, the folks that already live out here, they don't want to see the character of Decatur change. They don't want to see the character of Weatherford change. They don't want to see the character of Gainesville change. They like the idea that, things are the way they are. And you sit there and think, well, what kind of drives that? What is the character of these rural areas? And the character is the fact that, there's a bunch of cows sitting right beside Walmart. I mean, that's the character. And you ask yourself, well, why does that end? Why do we have only like one patch of land? I don't know if it's still there. I used to drive over in Plano, it was on Park or something, and there was all these $1 million mansions, and there was one guy that never sold, And you ask yourself, well, why does everyone always sell? Why does this happen? And it doesn't happen, after the urban area is firmly established, like, we're already at the Denton stage. It happens years before that. And I think the thing that I hear from everyone, and I personally believe, is a lot of the cause of it is policy. We have a policy where, in order to have ag exempt, to take land that is not currently ag exempt and turn it into ag exempt land, you pretty much have to wait 5 years, and you have to pay those regular taxes. So let's say I'm a guy that wants to open up a little boutique cheese, goat cheese farm, and I want to sell direct to customers, and I want to follow all the laws, and I want to do it right, and it's going to be a really cool little thing to have in some place like Decatur. Well, if I wanted to do that, and I find this nice patch of land that is close enough to town that people are going to drive out there, and they're not going to drive 20 minutes to go get goat cheese, potentially, I have to find a piece of land that probably isn't ag exempt already. And then I got to have the investment and sit there and buy all the tools, buy all the tractor, and I've got to be able to just make a huge investment, first of all, to get the farm going. And then on top of that, the Central Appraisal District is going to say, okay, well, you're going to have to pay us full market value for that land for 5 years. And then only after 5 years, we'll refund it.
So let me get this straight. So even, let's say if you buy a piece of property currently, right now, as the rules are, if you buy a piece of property and you immediately turn it into agricultural property, meaning you've got cows, you've got crops,
exactly,
you still have to pay full tax as if it's not agricultural property for 5 years.
For 5 years.
Okay.
And so that's like the 5-year penalty. And I'm telling you, everybody out here talks about that. There's folks that move out, they buy 10 acres, and they're like, man, I sure would like to turn it into ag, but it's not worth my time. I mean, it's 5 years away. I mean, 5 years is an eternity to people, and they're not willing to do it. So what happens is that folks basically that need to sell land, I mean, they run into financial hardship, or they just need some extra cash, and they have dad's land that they had passed down the family, and they want to parcel it off. And they say, okay, well, maybe it would be more valuable to me right now to have cows on it, but because it's not ag exempt, the only people who are willing to buy it are people who are not interested in using it for ag. So you have now limited your market of people that are interested in that land to people who are only interested in then selling it to someone who might sell to someone else that eventually builds a neighborhood there. But if you, and what I'm proposing, let's limit that to 1 year. Turn the 5 years down to 1 year. Folks can get through 1 year of property tax. Then they get their money back for that 1 year. And that's the way it is now. You get your money back after 5 years, nobody's willing to wait it. But if you move down to 1 year, then what you've done is you've opened up an avenue where somebody says, what's the most valuable use of this land? I mean, what can I use this for? And they might say, you know what, small agricultural, boutique, little farms, little bee, a bunch of beehives and selling, raw honey to folks, and having a nice little shop, and maybe just that kind of environment that is very profitable, even in semi-urban areas, but would not be possible if we don't change our policy. Our policy is basically kind of encouraging everything to have concrete on it. And we need to, especially in these areas in SD30, we need to change policy so that we can retain the character of Decatur retain the character of Weatherford and all of these areas that are now close enough in spitting distance to the Metroplex.
Gotcha. So, all right. So let's recap. So your policy proposal is, number one, to decrease the amount of annual is to improve the annual increase cap from 10% down to 5%. So instead of somebody's property tax value going up 10% every year, the maximum it would be able to go up under your plan would be a maximum of 5% every year. And that's for homestead exemptions, right? Okay. And then the second part of that is to give an automatic exemption to all single family residential houses at what was the value on that one?
Yeah, we should have a exemption of the exemption should go up to 15%.
15%. Got it.
Yeah, standard 15% exemption.
I'll tell you what, and the thing is, that sounds like a high number, but what I've personally seen is the appraisal district will have some kind of glitch in their system where they won't value a property for say like 5 years in a row. And then all of a sudden in 1 year, they try and make up for the value by basically doubling the value. I've seen that a bunch of times. And that would put a limit on that. And then it would also give somebody some kind of upper end to budget for if they're trying to manage rental property and depend on that for their rental income. That's brilliant. I think it's awesome, Andy.
Well, Chandler, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak about this here. And, and I love to talk to you about all these things because you're like Winston Churchill. You have like 10 ideas a day. You know what I mean? It's unreal. Getting to know you over the years has done nothing but improve my ability to brainstorm. So, thanks for all your help.
Well, you're a brilliant guy. You're a brilliant guy, and you always think different. And I'll tell you what, the majority of the ideas I get are just because we're talking to so many people and we're aware of so many problems. And after you help so many people, then it's like there's certain consistency to the problems. And so then you just say, well, what's the obvious answer to this? It's well, we need to limit the amount that the government can charge us on property tax. And here's the thing, Andy, I'm so glad that you are interested in these areas, because what most people don't understand is that politicians will look at this entire property tax system and they'll come up with a solution that makes sense from the perspective of a politician, which is they put a cap on the overall revenue increase, which is great. It makes sense. But for me and you that have to go down to the appraisal district every single year and protest our property tax value because it's gone up $50,000, and meaning we're going to have to pay a ridiculous amount more, that revenue cap doesn't do us a whole lot of good. And this is actually something that focuses on the individual, which I love.
Most folks, 99% of Texans are not going to know the ins and outs of their municipality's budget. And they won't be able to sit there and see that correlation, like you say, between that 3.5% cap or 2.5% cap on schools and see how it somehow translated into a benefit for them. Like you said, they're just going to see, oh my gosh, the Central Appraisal District really took a lot of thickness out of my wallet. So, this is going to provide a way for folks to actually see that the state and their local communities are looking out for them. So I think that's what we should be for.
Good deal. All right. So let's give a little recap on what you're doing. All right. So you're running for Senate District 30. And here's the thing. I know I'm a lot of people in Tarrant County are watching this and they're not going to be able to vote. Is that correct?
That's right. Tarrant County is not an SD 30. But
so here's the thing.
Folks in Weatherford, right? I mean, and these issues don't just affect SD 30. A lot of things we're talking about, I think, are things that do affect SD 30 and probably every other district in the state. But I think that folks that are passionate about this should be passionate. It doesn't really matter what district they live in.
Well, do you know how many senators there are in Texas? Putting you on the spot.
There's 31.
31. You nailed it. That's a good answer. All right. So check it out. There's 31 senators. I don't care where you live. If we can get a senator elected to office that's going to vote in a way that supports private property owners, then we are to benefit from that. I don't care where we're at. So here's what we got to do. We got to get Andy Hopper elected. And the way we got to do that is to pick up the phone and call somebody that you know that lives in Senate District 30. I'm going to tell you exactly where, or Andy's going to tell you exactly where that Senate district is. But here's the other thing you can do. You can take this video and share it, and go join some Facebook groups in some of these areas, and go share the video and just say, hey guys, vote for Andy Hopper. All right, so let me just repeat. If you live in Tarrant County, you're not going to be able to vote. We've got to reach the people in Senate District 30, and a lot of them aren't hearing this. We got to get this message to them. So Andy, I want you to go over the areas that that Senate District 30 covers, and then I want you to go over the dates for the election so that we can help drive this message and get people out there to go vote.
Right. Okay. Well, so first of all, let me just describe. Senate District 30 is the size of some other states in this nation, and I mean it's like more than half the size of Ireland. So just to give you an idea, this is a very large area. I mean, we're talking Wise County, we're talking Parker County, we're talking Palo Pinto County, Erath County, Young County, we're talking Archer County, Wichita, we're talking Cook County, we're talking Grayson County, we're talking a piece of Collin County, we're talking the northern half of Denton County. If I've left any out, there's a map on my website that shows exactly where District 30 is.
What's the website name?
Okay, so my website is hopper4txsenate.com. hopper4txsenate.com. And yeah, there's a map right there that shows you the physical boundaries of SD30. And you know, and the dates. I mean, this is a special election, and people think that this is a primary, that, you know, because there's so many Republicans running. But it's not a primary. Our election law for emergency elections, which has only been used a couple times in Texas, our election laws only allow the governor to call a general election. So we actually have Republicans and Democrats running. And he called this about a week ago Sunday, actually Sunday afternoon, 1 week ago. And yeah, thanks, Chandler.
There you go.
Yeah. And so that's the map. But yeah, he called this election a week ago. And so voting begins on September 14th. That's when early voting begins, and voting terminates. The last day of voting is general election is September 29th. It's a Tuesday. And this is not a November election that I'm running for. And you know, there's probably going to be a runoff. And so that may occur during the general election. Most likely, from what I understand, it probably will be an election after that. But this is the election now. It's just September. We're really just campaigning for a couple weeks here before voting starts.
Gotcha. Cool. All right. So this is a weird election, guys. There's an opportunity for Andy to actually get elected, because it's a really short campaign cycle, and then all of a sudden voting happens. And I've got people asking here on the chat, if he got in, could he help Tarrant County too? Absolutely. Here's the thing. A law does not pass unless the legislature agrees. Like, they've got to have enough votes. Andy Hopper is a vote that's going to vote for an interest that you have. That's why we got to get Andy Hopper elected. So we got to reach people that are in this area right here. So it's this outline area, and you can go see this map. I just put it in. It looks like it. I'm not sure where this posts to. I hope it posts. Oh yeah, it posted to everywhere. So if you go to our Facebook page, it's hopper4senate.com, and then you can navigate to see the map. If you know anybody in these areas, or you can go join a Facebook group in any of these areas, go post in the Facebook group. If you see somebody else that posted in the Facebook group, comment below and say, hey, I support Andy Hopper because this guy's going to help us fix our property tax issue. That's what we've got to have.
Well, thanks, Chandler. And I really appreciate the plug. And I've really enjoyed knowing you all these years. So I thank you for speaking with me today. And I have appreciated the platform, or the forum, to get my platform issues out there.
Absolutely. You got it, man. Well, it is my pleasure. And the only reason I'm able to do this is because I'm not interested in getting involved in politics at all. I've got one interest, and that is to help people with property tax issues. And the fact that you're interested in this, and you're willing to go down there, and you're not going to go grease a bunch of palms. You're not going to play the typical politician, because I can guarantee you Andy Hopper is not a typical politician. He's just a good guy. He's a good guy that went and fought in Texas only army that, the Texas, whatever it is, serve, whatever. It just is. It blows my mind. All right. So, and let me say this one last thing. I do not care what your views are on anything else. It does not matter. If you want, most of the things in Texas, and I know that there are people that support all sorts of causes and they're fighting their hearts out. And I'm not trying to disparage their efforts or say anything negative, but the truth is there's a whole lot of stuff in Texas that ain't going to change no matter who you vote for. But one thing that can change is your property tax issues. If these politicians get on board, it's a bipartisan issue. It doesn't matter if you don't agree with anything else Andy has to say. Take the money that Andy helps you save and then go donate to some other politician on the next election cycle. But for now, if you want to donate to Andy, donate to Andy. If you want to help get him elected, he's going to be out there fighting to get your property tax issues taken care of. And so that's the reason why we're on this live stream. And look, I'm wide open. It's easy to find me. And Andy, I've had basically 2 politicians reach out and say, dude, you're fighting the fight that I believe in and I'm ready to go. So it's like, man, you got me energized and I'm going to do everything I can to help you get elected because people need the help. The politicians, they get off on these different platforms, but what people really care about is the fact that they're going bankrupt because they're having to pay so much in property taxes. And I just can't thank you enough for taking an interest in this and being willing to go down there and fight. So
my pleasure. And it's like I said, we've had a blast. We're doing great. And I am very excited. And I think we can make a huge difference here. And like you say, I would be offended if anyone ever called me a politician. I don't intend to be there long. I'm a small farmer and I'm an engineer, and I believe in duty, and I don't believe that I should, and I even don't want to make a career out of this. Right? We just want to make some changes, and we need to go home. So that's
awesome. That's what I like. Hey, most people don't know this. I'm going to share this. You see that barn behind Andy? He built that with his own 2 hands. It blows my mind.
Yeah, it's not a prop. It's not a prop. It's not a screen. I mean,
I've been in the barn, and he's got a beastly white dog that's working to keep coyotes away. And the floor in the barn. Tell us about the floor in the barn there, and then we're going to answer some people's questions real quick.
Oh man, yeah. So that floor, that was probably the wildest thing. I mean, it took us a couple years to build it because we did our, and you know what? And I mentioned this. I have a companion video. I'm going to start posting a video every day on my on different platform topics. Today was property taxes. That's the biggest issue. But so I have a companion video. I talked a little bit about that barn. But yeah, that barn. The floor was an interesting story because we ran into a guy that was somehow helping out, or basically had access to these bricks that they were just pulling out and trashing down out of Fort Worth. They were renovating Main Street, and I guess Main Street used to be all brick. This is the same Main Street that goes through the stockyards. It used to be all brick, and like 4 foot down there was the old brick, and every single brick that I got had a huge chunk of tar on it, or asphalt. Had to go through 4,400 bricks, chip off that tar. We were all out there. We came in. We looked like miners. I mean, I'm serious. You're sitting there chipping stuff, and your face is black. I mean, you don't realize it's like kind of a powder. And so we were out there with hammer drills doing this. 4,400 bricks down on the floor of the barn. So yeah, that was one of the stupider things we did.
No, it should be a crime that those bricks ended up in the landfill. You're like the savior of Tarrant County for salvaging those bricks. That's history, man. All right, hey,
I'm very proud to have them in there, and it's the coolest thing. So and that's the thing. Central Prison.
Oh, he's frozen. He's frozen. Andy's got a rainstorm going on. Let's give him a second to come back, and then we're going to go through questions. It would really be tragic if we lost connection and he wasn't able to answer questions, because I've been kind of holding off. I wanted to make sure that he's calling me. What's up, man? Did I lose you? Hey, man, I think I lost you. Are you there?
Yeah, it went down because of the storm.
All right. Well, hey, I'm just going to hold you right up next to the microphone. Let me read off some questions. So there's a big lightning storm out in Decatur right now. And so we lost his connection. So you'll just have to pretend you can still see his lips moving. Well, let me read some questions off that people are asking here, because we've got a lot of people that are interested in what you have to say, and they are asking some questions. So Isaac Costello says 5% on the annual property tax increase. Great start. So he's cheerleading. You know what? Let me see here. Keenan Borg is curious if you have any kind of additional plan for retired veterans, like maybe a retired veteran exemption. What do you think about that?
Yeah, you should, and that's something we haven't really talked about, but I have an extensive platform as it relates to military issues and, specifically, reserves, National Guard, and active military, and ways that we can kind of support them. And so one of the things that I do mention in there is that, and I would believe this would extend to active members, but I'm more than open to talking to folks about ways that we can help all folks that have served. But one of the things we do mention in there is basically extending a freeze on property tax. Folks get freezes on property taxes for all manners of categories. I mean, there's all kinds of ways that your property taxes can be freezed, and most people don't recognize that. And one of the things that I'm advocating is if you're if you're serving the state of Texas, and the National Guard or the State Guard, and you are active, then your property taxes shouldn't go up during that period of time. And folks are not compensated to the level that they are contributing. So I think that's a way. Open to hear. Any sort of views that he has on this. I'd really like to hear ways that we can help people who have served this nation and the state. So
awesome. Will Toller. Will is a man. He is you'd love meeting Will. I know you're going to have a pretty full schedule until you get on the get elected Senate. But Will's been on an interview here, and he says, would y'all consider a 1% increase for homestead properties? And he said, would multifamily be considered residential?
Well, I think we got to start where we can and we can get support. I would love for the exemption to apply to all dwellings and not just single-family dwellings. I think we need to start where we can actually get some broad support. I think I think where we're starting is a good place. I think. Let me just say too. And I mentioned earlier about my whole feeling of property taxes, and most people don't realize, the Texas GOP platform calls for ending the whole property tax system, and I agree with that. Property taxes, as our governor pointed out years ago, are essentially just homeowners renting property from the government. It's not really an ethical tax. If I am a citizen and I own property, I should be able to live on it and be left alone. If I have 100 acres in Timbuktu, I should be able to hunt on my property, have a garden, have a little shack, and just be left alone. But property taxes force people into activity. It forces them into commerce just so that they can collect enough green dollars to pay the rent to the government on the property. And if they don't pay it, they can lose it. So they don't own it. It can just be taken away if you don't pay recurring costs. We need to move away. So basically what we're doing, Chandler, is we're just chipping away at reasonable things that we can do here until we can get broad enough support of folks that recognize this isn't a moral form of tax, and we should come up with something better. And let me be very, very clear, I am against an income tax as well.
Oh, that was the next question I had for you. Okay. Yeah. Are you there?
That's not a fringe position. That's the position of the state Republican Party.
That to get rid of property tax and also oppose an income tax.
Right.
Okay.
Both things, but basically the property tax is an eventual outcome. We're going to have to get there a little bit at a time. It's going to be hard to flip a switch. You remember Herman Cain? He was running for president years ago.
Yeah.
He was pushing the consumption tax, the fair tax, and that was something I was really excited about. But I think that and I don't have a plan for this. This is going to be something we're all going to have to put our heads together on. But maybe a Texas-sized version of that is probably what we'll be looking at.
Gotcha. Good deal. Let's see here. I've got one more question, and then we're going to tell people again how they can help out. So, and if you're just joining us, Andy is in the middle of, he's in Decatur, and he had a lightning storm, and so he got kicked off of the interview here. But let's see here. Guy says, how do we start managing tax exemptions for businesses? This trickles down to my taxes going up. So what could you propose for to help out with business tax?
Right. Well, here's the thing. We need to lower the barriers of both entry for business, and we need to make it so that Texas is as hospitable a place for business as possible. I think I think that across the board, I think that Texas is a pretty hospitable state. I think that's why you have a lot of folks moving here. But I think, and I have personally experienced, especially for smaller businesses, it's difficult. It's difficult to get started. It's difficult to keep up with things. And, if you do mess up, you let's say forget to file a quarterly report or whatnot with the Secretary of State, those fines can be extraordinary. So there's a lot of things that I think that we need to do. A lot of folks have been asking, things I've heard is like, well, how do you get rid of, what can we do to get rid of laws that are victimless laws, like seatbelts or, drugs or something like that. And, I have a stated position on some of these things. But, this is another one. I mean, if you just mess up as a business owner and make a mistake, you shouldn't be charged, for instance, an average amount of sales tax that every single business in the state of Texas, you shouldn't be compared to Walmart, but that's what they do. And so we need to take each thing, go through what, talk to folks that have run into some of these problems, and we need to systematically start dismantling some of these things that are barriers to entry, make people scared of starting businesses. I sure was when I first tried. I don't know if you remember, Chandler, but years ago. When we were trying to get started there, it was a scary process. So.
Yeah, no, I remember, and you went through great lengths. You moved a mobile home on the property while you're building a house, and really putting in a lot of sweat equity into getting things going. And I couldn't agree with you more, Andy. Texas is a very business friendly state from everything I gather. I haven't lived in any other state, so I don't know firsthand. But these small business owner gets kicked in the gut, man. And I think that it's great when you're attracting a big business, but for the small guy starting out, most people don't realize there are a lot of small business owners that are broke. They just are. And they're out there just chasing a dream and hoping that they can defy the odds. And when you have 1 out of every 10 businesses fail in the first 2 years, and then out of the ones that succeed out of that, like maybe one out of the 10 of the succeeding ones survive over the next 5 years, it's obvious that the small business owners is getting slapped around pretty bad.
And let me just add one thing there too. One of the things that I've experienced, starting LLCs and whatnot, is that it's extremely tedious and very difficult for an average person to get through the process without, dealing with some consultant or hiring some lawyer. I think I'm finally back on the internet here, so we might pop back on. We'll see. Let me join. We'll see how long this lasts. Hey, back.
That was quick. Look at that. Engineer Andy makes it happen.
I'll tell you what, the internet's magical, isn't it? I'm really glad that we're,
Hey, so let's do this. This is great. Let's go ahead and just wrap up, and let's tell people again the dates. Okay. And then why don't you name some big cities that the District 30 covers?
Right. So the biggest city that I would love to speak to as many folks as possible is Wichita Falls, right? That's the biggest city in the district. We have a lot of areas that are near the edge of the Metroplex that have a lot of folks. You have, like, say, Northern Habit, Denton. We have, like, Wiley in Collin County, Farmersville. But we also have Weatherford, which is a large area. Wow, I'm on the internet and the lights just went off. Isn't this the greatest thing? But no, we may not survive this. So, we'll let you know if we get, just brutally killed by the storm here. But yeah, so we have Weatherford, we have Gainesville, we have Decatur, we have Jacksboro, we have Graham, we have Archer City, All
right. So he is offline and he's going to stay offline. So what I'm going to do is just show you his website again. And I'm going to show you, you've got his map here. If you go to District 30, then you can see those areas that are covered by District 30. And then I know on his homepage, he's got a little banner running that shows exactly when the election is happening. And so here's the thing, guys. If you know somebody in those areas, encourage them to go out and vote for Andy Hopper for these dates. And that is what I'm saying. Look, you can see Andy serving with the Texas State Guard. And early voting starts September 14th through the 29th. So we've got to get people out to the polls then. Hey, thank you so much for joining us. Look, I will protest for you as long as I can, but I'd love to not have to. I would love to solve this problem permanently, and it isn't going to get solved unless we change the property tax code. And so we need more people like Andy down there representing us in Austin that are willing to go and do what it takes to correct the property tax code. There's his family, and there's Amanda. There's she works with us. All right, y'all have a great day. See ya.